Hey, Battle Bill here with another video, and today we're going to go back into some Go Battle League battles. So, in today's set, we're going to be highlighting a Pokemon that you've probably seen before in Go Battle League battles, and that Pokemon is going to be HERACROSS. From time to time, I try to go off meta, test some different things, see what works against the usual core of Swampert, Registeel, and Giratina. As you'll notice on my team, I'm still running Giratina on it. It's very hard to get away from the meta, as we all can tell when we try to get to those higher ranked battles. But on this team, it consists of a HERACROSS lead, Scizor in the back, and then Giratina also in the back. And the main reason why I decided to lead with HERACROSS was because up until these battles, I was running into a bunch of Registeel leads. And you want to hear something funny? I start leading HERACROSS, and you know who I don't see as a lead anymore? Registeel. How does that happen? I really need some answers, Niantic. Just like, slide in the DMs. Anyhow, let's get into these battles. I'll tell you how this team works. It's not a perfect team. There's no perfect team in Go Battle League, Ultra League, or Great League, or Master League. You just run with what you run until it stops working, and then you try and figure out another team. So, like I said, going up against this person named JG89. As you'll notice, my poor rank 10 rating has dipped a bunch, and that's because I've been trying to test some spice, and then when I do, we get leads like this. So I got my HERACROSS right up against a Gyarados. So I go for the immediate swap into Giratina, and I'm essentially doing this swap to force a bad swap on their hands, because Gyarados on Giratina is still a pretty good matchup for the Gyarados, but a lot of people will see you switch and then decide to switch themselves. So that's essentially what I'm hoping for here. I land the Dragon Claw. They decide to switch. They switch in their Giratina, but even though it's hard to see, their Giratina is actually running Shadow Claw. Mine's running Dragon Breath. So based on that, I know quick move damage, I can deal a lot more and possibly still pull out this matchup and get switch advantage back. It also depends on what type of shielding they aim for. So I shield their first Dragon Claw. I'm getting to one right here. They decide to shield also. So I'm still debating to myself, if they get to the next one, do I want to shield it or not? I'm doing as much Dragon Breath damage as I possibly can. And I'm like, at this point, I'm probably not going to catch up to him. So let me just take this Dragon Claw to the face and get off one more. So I'm getting off this Dragon Claw, and I'm assuming after my Giratina gets knocked out, that I'm going to bring Scizor back in, because HERACROSS does not have a good matchup against Giratina, and unfortunately HERACROSS doesn't have a good matchup against his Gyarados, so that issue is still in the back. He goes for his charge move here, and most Giratinas aren't running Ancient Power anymore because of the nerf. This Giratina happens to be running Ancient Power, even though it was nerfed. But you'll see it does a lot less damage, so I still wouldn't really recommend it unless you love fishing for that boost. He brings in a Swampert, and I'm like, you know what? My best chance here is to bring HERACROSS in, because HERACROSS is a good matchup against Swampert, and maybe he'll make the mistake of leaving it in. And right now, his Swampert's still staying in. Oh, he switched it in. That was the mistake he made. He should have just let his Giratina go down, because once he swaps in Swampert, I can lock my HERACROSS onto a Swampert, and he essentially has given me a chance in this battle. Now, I don't remember if I pulled this one out or not, but I had no hope going up until this point. So I'm going for this close combat, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to knock out his Swampert, and I do. Unfortunately, I don't get his last shield, but I do have some energy, so I'm going to throw it at his Gyarados. And I've essentially doubled nerfed my defense by throwing these close combats, and that's kind of a good thing, because I really don't want his Gyarados to get too much more energy as it farms me down, since my HERACROSS was stuck. Now I bring in the Scizor, I go for the Night Slash, and you'll notice I have a nice amount of health left, but neither of us have shields at this point. So I'm just like, alright, hopefully I can bullet punch down. I want to bullet punch down. Please tell me you're not at Hydro Pump. I can survive a crunch and then possibly take down the Giratina if you're not at Hydro Pump. He's at Hydro Pump. So, GG. It was a good match. I tried to keep it as close as I possibly could, considering I lost lead right at the beginning of it. And now, we're just going to move right into the next battle and keep this team of three. What I recommend whenever doing Go Battle League battles is, if you're testing a new team and it seems to be a little off meta, try to stick with it for a full set of 5, unless you really notice some obvious weaknesses. This next battle is up against Papa Chang, but what I noticed with this team is it's super weak to fire. but not a lot of people are bringing too much fire. But hey, look at this. I lost another lead. Cresselia on my HERACROSS. So I go for the immediate swap to try and force their immediate swap. And what do you know? They bring Alolan Muck in. Now, typically, Alolan Muck has a very good matchup against my Giratina. But he swapped so fast, he might not have realized that my Giratina is running Dragon Breath instead of Shadow Claw. Shadow Claw would have been resisted by Alolan Muck. My Dragon Breaths are neutral damage, and what you'll notice is they're starting to add up. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try and commit 2 shields here, because I need switch advantage back. If I don't get switch advantage back, then his Cresselia is just going to line up with my Heracross again, and I'm going to lose this match no matter what. So I'm like, you know what? Might as well commit. I throw another Dragon Claw here. He shields it. And I'm like, you know what? Even though you shielded it, I'm pretty sure you see those Dragon Breaths adding up. Even if he shields another Dragon Claw, I can Dragon Breath him down. So I'm committing my second shield here. And you'll notice I'm still in the green. I can still tank one more Dark Pulse, even if he gets to it. And I go for the Dragon Claw to see if he wants to commit to trying to save his switch advantage. But at this point, he really can't. I've already committed 2 shields. Dragon Breaths are adding up too much. He decides he wants to shield it. I guess he really wanted to get in that next Dark Pulse. But you'll see this next Dark Pulse is not going to finish off my Giratina. So essentially, depending on whatever his third Pokemon is, I've gotten some sort of advantage back. Because my Heracross isn't going to line up with his Cresselia, and I have Scizor in the back who can deal with Cresselia pretty well, better than most Pokemon. But then he brings in Lapras, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I want to get this off. I have no shields. I got to be careful, but he has no shields. So this works out even better because I have Heracross, and Heracross is going to deal super effective damage to his Lapras. I just got to make sure he doesn't get 2 charge moves off, but he really shouldn't be able to by the time I get to 1 close combat. Right here, it might be an Ice Beam. Let's find out. It is an Ice Beam, but Heracross can tank a charge move. It's not the bulkiest, but it can handle it. I see the swap. I go for the immediate swap. And at this point, it's pretty much GG. I resist either 2 out of 3 or all 3 of Cresselia's charge moves. I definitely resist Aurora Beam. As you'll see right there, it lands because it's an Ice-type move, and I think the Steel typing resists it. If you were to throw Future Sight, that's a Psychic-type move, and Scizor is Bug, so I'm pretty sure that would resist. I'm pretty sure. And then I'm throwing Night Slashes, and I get the boost. So this game is like, alright, you want back switch advantage, you deserve this W. Because, you know, I worked pretty hard for this one after losing lead. It is not an easy task to come back after a lost lead. He throws Future Sight, that's not very effective. And then Cresselia also has Moonblast, which is a heavy-hitting move, but it's Fairy and Scizor Steel, so it resists that also. So Scizor is a pretty solid counter for Cresselia, as tanky as it is. And I land this last Night Slash, and with the boost, it takes it down. And then he brings in his Lapras, and now my Scizor is essentially just going off. This is one of those ideal situations. You really love to see your Scizor going up against a Cresselia. You really love to see it going up against an Armor Mewtwo. You want to avoid the Dynamic Punches because it's neutral, but Scizor still can pretty much take those matchups. And Scizor does pretty well against Giratina. You would prefer Dragon Breath Giratina because the Dragon Breaths would be resisted from Scizor Steel typing. And now I come in with Heracross with a close combat, pretty much charged up, and I finish off this match, and now I'm officially 1-1 in the set. So I showed you a strength to an extent from this team, and one thing that I do need to highlight is that my Giratina is running Dragon Breath because it'll win that matchup against Alolan Muck, like you saw, and it'll also win most matchups against an opposing Giratina with Shadow Claw, depending on energy, shielding, and how much damage has already been done to my Giratina. So this next match is up against Cortana Zoe, and I'm going in, again, I'm committing to the same 3 for the entire 5, and I finally won a lead. Let's see how this plays out. Because again, winning a lead, just like that last match where I lost a lead and I ended up pulling out the win, there's no guarantees. We get a little bit of lag here. A lot of lag here, which I'm pretty sure he got some extra Thunder Shocks, as you kind of saw, and he got a swap through, and he brings in his Clefable, and I have no idea if a Charm got through, but this is what Clefable's here, not Clefable, this is what Scizor's here for. Scizor is here for these Clefables and these Charmers. Typically, I would commit to a farm down, but I want to pressure the Clefable, and I want to see if I can grab his shields, so I threw the Night Slash, which is going to do very minimal damage. I'm also kind of fishing for the boost, but I really wanted to worry him and make him think he can get off a charge move and possibly shield an Iron Head, which is why I threw that charge move. So he gets to his Meteor Mash. I'm fine with shielding it, even though I resist it, and I would have been able to survive. And at this point, I'm just going to commit to the complete farm down the Clefable. And that's one of those matchups that you love. You win lead, they switch in a Charmer to try and handle HERACROSS because it's a fighter, and then Scizor is there in the back as a steel type to go and protect your HERACROSS from those Charmers. He comes back with his Melmetal. I throw a Night Slash. I have another Night Slash, but I don't think I realized I had the Night Slash. Either I clicked it too late, or I lost CMP. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'll tank whatever charge move, and I'll hope that I can survive. Scizor did not survive. I'll bring HERACROSS back in, and I'm going to commit to that farm down. Now, this is where I think that lag in the beginning kind of messed me up, because I swear that Melmetal had a little bit of extra energy that it shouldn't have had. And I was just worried about how much Rock Slide would do, and HERACROSS had so much energy. So I'm like, you know what? Let me shield it. Now he swaps in his Meganium against my Giratina. He has a 2 shield to no shield advantage, but the difference between Meganium and, let's say, another starter like Swampert, because those are the ones that are more popular in Ultra League Go Battle League, is that Meganium's Earthquake does not hurt as much as Swampert's Earthquake. And that's because Swampert is a ground type, so it gets that stab boost on its Earthquakes, whereas Meganium is, I'm pretty sure, pure grass. And you'll see that Earthquake did not do a lot of damage. He has 2 shields here, and look at this Dragon Breath damage, like, adding up. So if I was running Shadow Claw, those 2 shields would be more of a problem because I'd be relying on these Dragon Claws to do more damage. But he can shield these, and I'm still throwing Dragon Breaths at his Meganium, and they're doing a ton of damage. And at this point, I don't even need the shields because he can go all the way for an Earthquake, and my Giratina will be able to tank this one that's coming through. Actually, it's a Frenzy Plant, but regardless, my Giratina is going to be able to tank it, and now I'm just trying to go for this next Dragon Claw in hopes that he uses his shield so that my HERACROSS can throw its energy at his Melmetal in the back. So now we're waiting. We're going to see, even though he has low health, he decides not to shield. And I know that Melmetal is going to come in and try and farm up extra energy, so I'm bringing in my HERACROSS to counter it down. So even though he didn't use a shield, didn't make a difference because both of his Pokemon had such low health. So I was able to take the 3rd matchup of this set, and right now I'm currently 2-1. Now, in this next matchup, I'm going against Dino8268. And overall, whenever you're doing these matches with a HERACROSS lead, you're hoping for something where fighting is super effective, but a grass type like Sceptile here works just fine. He switches out immediately and goes into Armor Mewtwo, and this is where having Scizor right behind HERACROSS is a perfect fit. Because that confusion damage would have been super effective to HERACROSS, I can bring in something like Scizor, and it'll resist those confusion quick attacks. Now, the one thing I do have to be worried about from Armored Mewtwo is the dynamic punch that it's able to throw. So here, I'm going to actually shield because I know his Armored Mewtwo got a bunch of energy, and these dynamic punches are pretty... They do a decent amount of damage even though they're just neutral, because Scizor is not the tankiest. But once I've decided to shield that dynamic punch, I know I can just go to town on his Armor Mewtwo, throw these Night Slashes. Whether he shields it or not, he needs to go get to at least 2 more charge moves to take down my Scizor. And I'm getting to my charge moves a lot quicker than he's getting to his. So I'm about to throw this Night Slash. And even if he gets to a Side Strike, that psychic damage will be resisted. So he's going for another charge move here. And I don't remember whether or not I did decide to shield it just to be safe in case it was a dynamic punch. I would have just barely survived. Or I might have actually gone down, but I wanted to make sure I held on to switch advantage, and now we both have no shields. So I'm like, oh, perfect. You want to switch in your Registeel? I will bring in my HERACROSS, because he can tank both of Registeel's charge moves. Flash Cannon is neutral damage, whereas this Focus Blast that he is throwing right now is actually resisted. So if you're the Registeel in that situation, you want to go for Flash Cannon every time against a Heracross. Here, I know he's out of energy because he threw a Focus Blast, so I overcharged a bit. Now I'm going for this close combat. And like I said, I overfarmed. Whenever you're using a Heracross, especially when it's the lead, you do not want to throw a close combat right away. Because, like you saw before, it drops your defense harshly, which means the overall defense stat is dropping by 2 stages. So now I threw another close combat, that Armor Mewtwo, to take it down. So now my Heracross has gone down 4 stages, and you'll see those Bullet Seeds that Sceptile's throwing, even though they're resisted, are doing a decent chunk. But again, they're a weak move, so I'm able to get to another close combat here and take down his Sceptile to win the match. So this team that I went up against is like the ideal team to go against for this Heracross Scizor Giratina team, because when you win lead, they try to switch in something that's super effective against Heracross, like a Confusion user or a Charmer, and Scizor is right there in the back to be like, that's not happening. I'm going to protect my Heracross, and that's exactly what he just did in that matchup. Now, let's talk a little bit more about how you want to play HERACROSS. You really want to make sure that you're charging up to about 2 close combats whenever you're going to use HERACROSS in a possible winning matchup. Because like I mentioned, it drops the defense, and whatever the first charge move your opponent's throwing at you will most likely, unless it's like super effective, will most likely not one-shot your HERACROSS. So what you want to do is overcharge, so you have 2 of them, and either shield or tank the first charge move, and if they get to a second one, shield that one, and try to throw your close combats back to back. So I don't think any of these matchups are a clear example of doing that, but that's the ideal way to play that HERACROSS lead if you have a good matchup. So now we move into the 5th and final match of the set, and I've lost this lead. Notice how I said I didn't see a single Registeel lead. I did see a Melmetal lead, so I didn't mind that too much, so I can't complain. But once I've lost lead, the immediate swap in the Giratina happens, and now I'm met by a Charmer. So this is like the least ideal situation you want to run into. I've essentially lost this matchup now from the start because HERACROSS on Giratina was a poor matchup for me, and now when I swapped into Giratina, his Clefable on my Giratina, he's just going to completely wall me. So I really don't have a chance of winning back switch advantage and getting Scizor onto his Giratina. So I'm just playing this out, hoping that maybe he'll make a mistake. I'm not going to give up on any matches. I rarely ever quit, and I try my best not to. The only time I will is like if we're both down to no shields and you're clearly just going to beat me. So now I bring in my Scizor. I know it's got a bunch of energy, and I'm just going to try and farm it down. I'm pretty sure I decided not to shield this because I'm like, maybe those shields will come in handy later, and this Meteor Mash is resisted because Scizor is a Steel type. I go for the farm down, and I'm hoping that whatever he brings in, Scizor has a good matchup against, or maybe he'll just bring Giratina back in, and I can try to work from there. Unfortunately, I cannot. And then, on top of it, I'm like, alright, I know I don't have a chance in this match, but now I'm glitching. You see, I stopped tapping there. I pulled up my switch screen. I wanted to bring in HERACROSS to try to maybe catch him slacking and maybe see if he'd leave Empoleon in there, and the switch just wouldn't go through. Like, I stopped doing my bullet punches. I was trying to click that switch, and it was not happening. So, I already knew I lost, so I wasn't too mad about this. I would have been a lot angrier with this match if, like, that I had a win condition, and that was my only win condition, and they wouldn't let me switch. But Niantic, honestly, I know maybe it looked like I was tapping to attack because at some points I did, because I was like, why isn't this switching? I want to do some sort of damage, but I promise you I clicked that switch. But overall, I let him just farm me down with his Giratina on my HERACROSS because between that glitch and then not having any possible winning matchups there was no win scenario in that match that was going to happen. But overall, I still like that team. Like I said before, no Ultra League Go Battle team is perfect. And if you're running into a bunch of Registeel leads, if you're running into a bunch of Lapras leads, if you're running into a bunch of Melmetal leads, anything that's weak to fighting, if you're running into it as a lead, try out this team. Run HERACROSS. Hope that, obviously, you want to hope you win lead. They bring in a Psychic type, or they bring in a Charmer. Scizor is your man to back him up. And if you lose lead, you want to go for your Giratina immediately and try to force a bad switch on their ends, and then win that switch advantage back. Now, obviously, I went 3-2 in this set, so that technique doesn't work out 100 times out of 100, but I still ended up winning more than I lost. So overall, I felt like that was a solid team. Let me know what you thought of that team of 3. Let me know what teams of 3 you've been running in Ultra League Go Battle League. And this Friday is when Master League drops. So I'm curious to see if the meta changes from preseason, especially because of that nerf to Ominous Wind on Giratina, or are we going to see Dialga, Snorlax, Melmetal, and all those mons over again. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.